Your stuff should be up, Steve. In theory.
Okay, let me.
We're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Saturday's episode of the Free Assange Online Vigil. Today is 30 days until the start of the second round of Julian's extradition hearing. It is 3,420 days since the beginning of his illegal and arbitrary detention. It is, I believe, 370 days, 72 days until since the trafficking of Julian to Belmarsh prison after a $4.2 billion IMF loan to the nation of Ecuador. So today we have a couple special guests with us and a guest host. Of course, there's Steve and I, and then we have Misty joining in as guest host in this. And then we are joined by our special guests, Deepa, as well as Commander X. How are you doing today, Deepa?
Very well. Thank you very much for inviting me on, Andrew.
Absolutely. And how are you today, Commander X?
I am very well. Thank you for having me again, once again. Good to be here. Good to be here on behalf of Julian. So, and a shout out to all of my own folks who have tuned in. And greetings to everybody, all the hosts. There's so many of them. And
so last week, Deepa, you gave us the Action for Assange here, the honor of being able to stream the Free the Truth event for you guys. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit how that all got started and what kind of inspired you to turn it into a digital march as opposed to a in-person event, because that's obviously not possible right
now. Yeah. Firstly, I think we were just grateful that you rescued us that day, Andrew, with the IT support. So, you know, I'm not a very techie person myself, so it was really helpful to have you on the call and to help us have that event. I was trying to think how I got involved with putting those events together, and it started off with a conversation. We have a grassroots group in London that's been going for a while, the Committee to Defend Julian Assange. They used to be called the JADC, and they've been running the vigils outside the Ecuadorian embassy and campaigning for Julian for a very long time now, because a few of them were more switched on than the rest of us in recognizing how grievous it was that Julian's freedom was being curtailed in the way it was within the Ecuadorian embassy. And as a result of talking to them, one of the things that we wanted to do was provide a bigger platform for some of the people who wanted to talk about the issues related to Julian. And that's how the Free the Truth event started last year. And to be honest, I put together my dream team of people like Mark Curtis and John Pilger and Craig Murray and all the great and the good, thinking they would all refuse. But we were quite lucky with that first one where they all agreed and came and made some very important points. And really, they were talking not just, one of the challenges we find with this movement is that we're talking to each other and we're preaching to the converted. And what they did at that event was to pull in people who were from different walks of life, trade unionists, nurses, doctors, and get them to start thinking about how we as citizens can contribute to the movement and contribute to recognizing that the attack on Julian isn't just an attack on Julian, it's an attack on democracy. And the idea of grinding down Julian by taking away his autonomy, taking away his dignity, taking away any freedom that he has, is also about making us more willing to accept those erosions in our daily lives. And we had a couple of events under the Free the Truth banner, and it worked really well. And we were planning another event in April, and then COVID came along, and so did all the restrictions that go with COVID and the need for social distancing. And we had a really good panel of speakers. So we thought, well, how can we bring people together again but also reach out to more people, because some of the speakers, for example, Chris Williamson and others, it is a lot of people want to hear them speak. Andrew Feinstein, for example, he's done phenomenal work in South Africa as an MP fighting against apartheid alongside Mandela. So having these people on that podium speaking for Julian was really important, and we were glad that they could come and join us. Would it be helpful if I said a little bit about who they were at the last event and what they spoke about and how that came together?
Absolutely, that would be awesome.
Okay. We started off pretty sharpish with Kristen talking about not just about what WikiLeaks has done, but also what Julian has done and what his experience has been of how Julian has been treated through the judicial process. And for me, this really rang a bell, because I've been going to the court hearings at Westminster Magistrates Court, you know, the administrative hearings that Julian has been coming to. And I'd urge those people who haven't read it yet to look at Craig Murray's account, not just of the extradition hearing, but his accounts of the hearings that took place prior. He came to one of the earliest hearings that took place. And what's very interesting in that is the sense of, you know, typical British formality. You have this court which is this grand imposing building. You have this thing, all rise as you come into the court, as the magistrate walks in, and this sense of formality, of procedure, this belief that things will go to a plan and then there is the rule of law. But actually, in Julian's case, whether it has been with the Crown Prosecution Service in Britain colluding with the Swedish authorities to keep the investigation for about a decade, really, at the preliminary investigation stage. Julian's never been charged. Opening and closing those investigations, but reopening them in ways in which they take away the autonomy of the people who made the complaints, changing their statements, disrespecting them by putting information out in the mass media, opening them up to criticism and actually using them to hiding behind these women to hide their own war crimes. And all of that is quite visible in the court in a very microcosmic way, because you have this grand procedure, and what it hides is a complete breakdown in the rule of law, where you have a journalist and a publisher being brought to court on absolutely ridiculous charges and being kept all this time in a maximum security prison alongside hardened criminals, terrorists, and others. Him serving a sentence which is disproportionate for a bail violation, and a bail violation only because his life was in danger and he wanted to seek asylum. So all of this, is a nice charade, which makes you think. You go into this court and you think, oh yeah, we will have a process. And it was quite an anticlimax the first time I went into that court, because you go into the court and you expect this rough and tumble, and you expect the prosecution and the defense to argue with each other. But there were several points in that hearing where the prosecution and the defense agreed with each other. And yet the judge ruled in ways that were detrimental to Julian, whether it was in that hearing or in the extradition hearing. So I think that, to me, was quite, I had never been to court before, at least not to an extradition hearing. And I was quite taken aback by what I saw. I was also astonished at the way in which you could see that, a lot of people wrongly assume that Julian is unbreakable. And yes, he has put up a brave fight, and he's been very strong. But it is very important for us to realize that psychological torture works, and psychological torture destroys people. And Julian will bear the scars of this for a long time to come. But that court process in itself, that, the process of putting him in prison, arbitrarily detaining him, putting him in a condition where he has no control over whether he gets to speak to his lawyers, whether he gets to communicate with his family, is all part of the same psychological torture. So the torture is continuing. And you cannot give, when they say, oh, Julian's receiving medical care as they did when Julian was in the health wing, you cannot treat torture while you're still torturing somebody. I mean, it's the equivalent of pulling out somebody's teeth while you're pulling out their toe and saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to stop pulling out your toenails at the minute. And it's vile and it's grotesque. And
it's basically hacking off someone's arm because they got a splinter in their hand.
Yeah.
We've been remarking the entire time that we've been doing these vigils that the case against Julian Assange represents the complete and total erosion of the rule of law, and it bears out in just ways that I never would have imagined, including the outing of, or the near outing of Stella Morris and their two children, and the fact that she had to jump in front of that ruling to reclaim a small bit of power or dignity is both remarkable and sickening at the same time.
Well, I think that that's also important with what Deepa was saying earlier, that we're kind of preaching to the choir, if you will. And I wanted to ask her, how do you think would be like a successful way? Because I feel like right now with COVID going on, we kind of have a very interesting opportunity where we sort of have a captive audience if we can get them watching. So I feel like we have this unique opportunity to bring new ears on to the situation if we get the right people talking about it. But I wanted to see, like, because you've had experience doing this, recently, how do you think we can utilize social media in this time to kind of widen our audience? Because I mean, I talk to regular people all that's like I've talked about on this show before that. I mean, I've had like an hour and 45-minute conversation with the guy that does my hair, and like they don't know anything. So I think we have like a really cool opportunity. I wanted to see if you had any ideas of how we could do that right now.
And that's for both of you, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I've prattled on for a bit, so maybe X wants to go first and talk a little bit, and then I'll come back and add any thoughts.
Hey, everybody. X is fine listening to our other wonderful guest. I think she was very eloquent, laid out the arguments very, very well. I understand the echo chamber argument of fear, and I'm going to just pretty much be consistent. I'm known for that. And so, from speaking with me last week, for instance, where we were in a very similar situation, how I feel about it. Now, I'll give you a classic example. This morning, I did very well on my own social media. Most of you know I got a pretty decent little following of my own. And I know for whatever reason, my message was funny and the timing was good. And, we made quite a little stir this morning on Twitter and whatnot. And so let's think about for a second, let's think who would have responded to that particular appeal. It would have been fans of Commander X, because let's face it, that's what it's about, right? I've got 2 books out, I've got like all this going on, movies coming out, television. So think about now my fans do not necessarily, I encountered the same thing she encountered with Bankeller, which I encountered too as well. I encountered an American the other day in the veterinarian office who had no clue about human. And there is that opportunity. But then think about like what we're doing here. The worry now that a stream like this or something like this, an outreach like what we're doing this morning is not important because it's echo. I think you're not taking out like I would say half my fans, my oh, better. Did you completely lose everything I was saying, or should I
No.
start again?
We got some
Oh,
of it.
okay.
You got most of it.
So,
Yeah.
so, so, so what I'm saying is, my fans now are tuning in this morning, and on average, 50% of those viewers right now who tuned in strictly because they saw it on Commander X's Twitter, um, are somewhat new to this. They are your audience. They are the thing you're talking about. And so these types of online events, which I think really we have to embrace as the norm for a minute, guys. We got to just face it. You got to face facts, man. It is what it is. Okay. So, I think are not lost. Again, it's a matter of your guess, and again, it comes down to that whole argument of the fame fact thing, right? So, um, is that an appropriate thing and all that? You know what? At times it just is what it is, and so if it takes getting quote unquote famous people who are funny and silly like I am to come on and get people's attention and keep people's attention in a way. I think part of it is with you media guys, and I know a lot of you hosts, especially, really like what you do. You should. Streaming is fun. Making an audience is fun. Building an audience is fun. I've been doing it whole life, working with independent media. And way back in the days of Amy Goodman, back in the early 2000s and stuff, I was rolling up my sleeves and streaming. So um, I think that, you need to embrace that. You're going to have to be a little bit more entertaining than you could get away with if we could all just get out in the streets and vent our anger at an embassy. It would be nice, but we can't. So maybe now you got to have longer events. You got to have more, interesting characters and interesting people to come on and focus everything on Julian. And I think that it's going to be okay. The one thing I want to leave people with, I think it's going to be okay. I really feel uh, sensitized these last few visits with this new sort of iteration of the Assange vigils. I feel sensitized to this despair that I hear in many of the guests and even some of the hosts. And I really want to fight against that. I want to fight against that and say that what we're doing is working. There's always new ways to do it. That doesn't mean that there's not new things to think about and new online stuff that we can organize and do. But what I'm saying is it's working. It's going to work, and it's what we've got, and it's very powerful. You cannot underestimate the power of this. I have written books about the power of what we are doing together right fucking now, and we have toppled governments. We have changed the face of history with tactics like what we're employing right this very second with this live stream and with other stuff that surrounds it, the websites, the Unity for J stuff, all of that satellite of stuff that is now concurrently in the literally right in the midst of this live stream. This can work, and it can move the world. And yes, it'd be nice if we could have the boots in the street. That's always great. That's always a wonderful thing. But at this very moment, that's just not going to be possible. And so I think that we should not despair at all, and we should, in fact, keep the same attitude you should always have in a revolution. And if I can't dance in a revolution, I don't want to be in your fucking revolution. You know what I mean? So have some fun with it and be entertaining. And you'll see that this that you're doing and the other things that you're doing online, the other projects, will work, and it's very powerful stuff. So stay positive, stay enthusiastic. You're a part of a historic movement. You're writing your own name into the book of history when you're doing work like this online. And a footprint that you leave on, say it never goes away, right? So the stuff you write and everything that you do, but there's a benefit to it too if you're a creator. It doesn't every creator sort of dream or writer or an artist or don't you have sort of dream of immortality, right? What better way to write in history and your own effort, your own thing, your own shine, you know what I mean, on this movement, this great movement. So
So
stay
we
positive
actually are here in the
and don't
United
despair.
States. Here in the US, we're seeing two different distinct types of, well, three actually, street protests going on right now. We have anti-lockdown protests that have recently started. We also have general strikes going on against grocery stores, convenience stores, big box retailers, and retail suppliers. And then there's also people going around doing like rent strikes and independent one-person protests using vehicles driving through communities to raise people's attention. So there still is, if you're someone that is interested in street protesting, a lot of ways to be a one person that can make a difference, whether it's fighting the lockdown, whether it's fighting for Julian or fighting for a general strike. There's a lot of groups that are still on the streets acting right now. So I don't think that could be written off either. Because a lot
and
of
let's be honest, an activist organization is going to live or die by its flexibility and its fluidity. And this moment right now, the lockdown has forced people to become more flexible in what they do and how they do it. So
and it's a chance to prove something yet again that Anonymous, my movement, has proven over and over and over again, has proven that if you employ these online tactics, this online activism, you will get the goods. You will get the goods. So why take the danger? I think people should stay home. I'm sorry, and I'm going to stick with that. You need to be with your family. You need to stay home. This is a very dangerous fucking thing, guys. It could kill millions of people. Could die if we don't get a handle on this. It's not a game. I just don't think it is. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't buy any of it. We're just frustrated about life, and it's doing a great job. It's popping up New York City. That's not true. That's not something we can just shake a stick at. So I think we should. That's my recommendation. It's going to be my recommendation for a while. In the meantime, though, this sort of effort, this sort of online activism is a very powerful way to get the goods and get things done, and it will get the goods.
I wondered if I could say something about, when I was telling you about the last event, I told you a little bit about Kristen, but one of the things that one of the other speakers on the show was Andrew Feinstein. Now, Andrew worked alongside Nelson Mandela in apartheid South Africa, and he was talking about how hard it was during the apartheid struggle to keep momentum going, especially towards the end when it seemed really like the state was, completely annihilating anybody who was at the forefront of the movement. And he was saying that just when it seemed like it was the worst, apartheid began to crumble. And I think, in a sense, I agree with X that we cannot think that, okay, now we're all online and therefore we can't do anything. But I think we have to be clever about, exactly as you said, about whom we reach and how we reach them. And in addition to talking to lots of ordinary people and creating that grassroots swell, I think other people have covered that really well in terms of talking to your following, talking to people within your following who've not picked it up, etc., etc. I think one of the nice things about the Anonymous movement and about a lot of online activism is this kind of guerrilla resistance. They don't really know where the fight is coming to them from, and the fact that we're not an organized movement with a specific leader kind of thing allows us to actually create new ways of disrupting the system. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to disrupt the narrative. And also, I think we need to start talking. I would say some practical things that people can do is, firstly, correct the record. Every time a newspaper, a journalist, a radio station, a television station repeats one of the smears, says, oh, the Swedish charges, which there are never any charges. You know, these kinds of things. It's important while we're at home and we have the ability to do so, to correct them either through social media or through other mechanisms. Secondly, not just correct them, but inform them, give them information. Dial into a radio show. Don't just waffle on for 2 hours about something. Just give them a short, sharp piece of information about Julian and why it's important that he's released. Try and influence people who are who might be involved with the criminal justice system, who might be involved with the media. Try and get them to engage with this. I think there is a great danger because we are so frustrated with the poor coverage in the mainstream media of this case, to just get very angry with mainstream media journalists rather than trying to get them to, at least some of them who are just blind to this rather than actively against Julian, to actually talk about this by feeding them bits here and there. And that's again a form of guerrilla activism. I think there's also a great opportunity now to link with other movements like the Green Movement, where lots of young people are getting very switched on about the crimes that our governments are committing in our name. Sorry, X, you wanted to say something.
Well, I want to raise my hand and sort of circle back on where I ended up here about my own audience. Okay, I know my Twitter following really well. It's many, many thousands of people. And of those many thousands of people, several hundred of them are journalists. Out of those several hundred, I would say probably half a dozen at least tuned in this afternoon. You are talking to mainstream media journalists right now simply by having me on as a guest. You are speaking to them now. Now, there's a film crew in Toronto recording this because I'm on the air. No shit. I mean, it probably won't be in the movie, but whatever. I mean, there's all this crap that satellites around. So you're talking already to journalists, to mainstream journalists. And so again, keep it up. Keep the pressure up. Don't get discouraged. You know what? You could do. They were talking about for the show, right? We're all talking, and I was listening, just kind of muted up and listening. And they talked about how right away after this thing is over, something in France is kicking off. So people got to run from like this show, right, over to that. That's showbiz, man. Make it showbiz. That's it. That's it. Just embrace that, man. And you know what? You could make it so that time zones, so that people were doing shows in time zones literally around the globe. Okay, am I being heard? I hope I'm.
There you go. That's a little bit better. Yeah. No, we're into that. We are.
Okay. Okay. So you know, you could. So we're doing it right around. Oh, I'm muting up.
We've been talking about what we're going to do leading up to the 18th, and which is the beginning of the second round of Julian's extradition hearing. And we're talking about 72 to 96 hours prior of just nonstop through multiple streaming platforms and YouTube channels. Yeah, and every time I start to get a little bit of despair, when that starts to creep in a little bit, I make myself go read Susie Dawson's Freeing Julian Assange Part 3. And I make myself read that section that says, how does your FBI handler want you to feel today? And I think about that. And I think that my FBI handler would want me to be depressed and sad and not doing my activism and not screaming about this as much as I can. So being opposed to authority in all forms, I then go out and scream about it. And I make myself do more because of it, because I'm not going to let a fucking suit make me depressed. I'm just not.
And one of the things that we like to promote here is the idea of the one-person protest, or just straight decentralized activism. Like going out and being that one person in your city that'll walk around and hang up flyers on telephone poles, or put or signs on telephone poles, put flyers in people's doors, or drive around in your car with a Free Julian Assange banner on it, honking your horn as you go through a neighborhood. So there's even a lot that one person can do, even as far as like one person sit-ins in press organizations and things like that, where you keep these proper distance barriers and such, but you're still able to affect change and make an impact. And it's something that they can't really track and they can't really watch, because if it's so many people doing so many things, that this one person doing a protest here that gets news coverage in a small town about Julian may be secondary to the person that does it in a larger city. So it's something that we hope to just inspire people to literally do what they can with the time and money that they have.
When there's an awkward pause like this, we usually like for one of the guests to chime in with their thoughts. But since
really?
it's your...
Oh, really? Oh, really? Is my page in the motherfucking hell, dude? Seriously, man. You guys fuck.
So I did want to talk about, I watched the Don't Extradite Assange event this morning. I don't know what time it was on, but I watched it this morning. But we were talking about journalists, and I think that something that we can do, rather than try to talk to, bother the New York Times or the Washington Post or CNN, why aren't you covering what's happening to Julian Assange? I think we need to start talking to individual journalists. I mean, we need to go at Chris Cuomo, and we need to go at, all of them and badger them about why they're not sticking up for one of their own. I think we'll probably see more response, and we probably won't see much response from that because they're all bot tools. But I think if we publicly shame them for allowing what's happening to Julian to happen, I think that we could, maybe change a few minds just on the, from people watching us publicly shame these people. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of their viewers will start to wonder, I wonder why they're not covering that. And it'll at least bring it, to the front of their minds about why aren't they talking about that? It seems like a pretty big deal. You'd think they'd be covering it. So I think that's one thing we can do. And I also really like the fact that there does seem to be multiple different groups. Like there's the Don't Extradite Assange, there's Deepa's group, and then there's this channel, and X does his thing. And so it's spread out. And I think, like X was talking about, he brings in his viewers to this show, and then this show takes their viewers to somebody else's show. And I think that'll help. So I think, we're all stuck at home, get a camera and a microphone and talk about it. And, try to get people to watch it and listen to you. And that's something we can all do. If you have the internet and a camera and a voice, everybody can do that. So,
you're your own television station. You're your own television station. I've been around since 2000 when streaming was nothing. It was everything was 56K dial up. Could do a little audio stream and have some fun and get a chat room going. But that was it. And now you live in the age of miracles of ubiquitous broadband, and you can literally download, OBS Studio like you all have done. I really believe the ones like you all who have a legacy of doing it should really be at the forefront, because you already know how to make it look nice, and we don't have a lot of time for a learning curve. I think you should tap a lot of people for guests, and remember that anybody can be a guest, man. At 3 a.m, when it's really hard to capture an audience, and you volunteer to be a guest, you've got something to say. You've got an interesting life. Everybody's got a story to tell. Everybody's got a story. Everybody could write a book if they really wanted to. So, tap into that. But yeah, I think that this is powerful time, because people are information starved. Number one, they're information starved, and number two, they are entertainment starved. So you combine those two into live streams, and if you want to see the one I keep harping on, which is the example of the previous historic roots of the last years, gaming. Maybe people can better understand this. Funny share, guys, buying internet spaceships in New Eden on EVE Online. For those who remember my EVE Online days. Am I breaking up?
A little bit.
Breaking up.
Well, we can blame that on Kevin.
Until month cellular, so. But anyway, what I'm saying is, gaming streaming, it's so easy to get thousands of people to watch you playing a game console. It really is. It's unbelievable. I go on, just fuck around with internet spaceships and fly them around, and people would tune in by the thousands and give me money and donate like this chair and crap like that. So it's just another example of the power of the medium, I guess is what I'm saying. People like to sit and watch long streams, just be upbeat, be entertaining. Get as many different kind of guests as you can, and go as long as you can. You've got nothing to lose. It's like it's like the Jerry Lewis marathon, right? He really felt passionate about that. He felt the kids would die, and I had to get on there and go for days on until my shirt was melting off my body and shit to raise kids. You be like, you gotta take that. So we're gonna go on this. We're gonna be entertaining at the end because we'll be so high on caffeine near the end of this that we're bound to be funny. We're gonna be entertaining and go along with it and have fun with it. And I think that these live streams are very potent. And then off of that, you can cycle from that attention. You can cycle other online stuff like email campaigns, petitions. You can fill up the dead time with news and how to do things. People love concrete instruction. Tell them, I'm putting a link, guys, right now on the chat or whatever. This is where we all got to go sign this one. This is a new one, but it's really powerful. Let's go do this. Let's go click on this. And so you audit activities, those online activities, because people are sitting right there with their phone in their hand or their laptop in front of them, already watching you, right? So you've got a captive audience, but you've also got a captive army. You've got a captive army of people who will, right this second, if I told you guys, all my viewers, all my 100 supporters watching, y'all click it, how many would go click it? Raise your hand. Everybody's holding it up right now. Seriously. And I would click it. So that's the way you make it happen, I think. And with that now, and we know the deadline, so we know what we're up against. That time is your opponent, not the government. Time is your opponent. How many people can form? How much noise online can we make between now and that hearing? And I think that we'll get the job done. I believe it will be enough if we engage it like that. And mostly just make sure to have fun with it, guys, because you can only say free Julie in so many fucking ways. Everybody gets it. Like you said, in a way, it is kind of an echo chamber. You're only going to educate so many people. So also make sure to have fun. Keep it light and entertaining while you're weaving all that other stuff in. And be good showmen. If you're into this sort of media, I enjoy live streaming. I enjoy the hell out of being a host. So. Go ahead and this is a time to try new stuff as an artist. Being a host is an art, right? An art. So try new stuff. See, wait, does this work? Maybe this hairstyle, whatever. Try things. A great way to hone your art and really make a name for yourself too as a streamer. Yeah, I'm very positive. I think we're on the right track.
So we had a question from the chat a little bit earlier, and I'll direct it to you first, Deepa. If he were free, what would Julian be saying about the COVID-19 pandemic? And what would his primary philosophical motivation be for taking any powerful action against it, or action?
I think at the heart of everything I'm not a friend of Julian's like some of you are on this chat, and I don't know him personally as in that way. But from what I could read of his work and of the motivations behind quite a lot of what he's done, I think it's about holding power to account. And one of the ways in which you hold power to account is that you enable whistleblowers and people who know stuff to actually tell you about what they're doing. And the other way you hold power to account is by mobilizing people around something that is where you give them evidence. You don't just be a journalist who regurgitates a press release. You give people evidence so they can see for themselves the crimes that these governments are committing. So whether it's COVID or the global financial crisis of 2007, a lot of what is happening because our governments are asleep on the not just asleep at the wheel, they're actively creating the issues that we're seeing in the public domain. So when in Britain we've run down our NHS, we have a fantastic social healthcare system, which you don't have in the US in the same way because of the way in which private healthcare has taken over. And the government here has completely destroyed that. And not only have they destroyed that, they talk about, going out of the window and clapping for carers or clapping for the NHS once a week. It's bloody stupid, right? If you really care about these people, you pay them a decent wage, you don't bully them, and you don't kick them out of their jobs, and you don't treat them in ways that completely undermine their sense of worth. And then say to them, oh yeah, you're doing a great job, and when Boris is in the ICU, we'll have 2 nurses sitting next to him, and the rest of us, if you die, who cares? And I mean, I'm not going to opine on America, but I definitely know that in this country, we're paying people too little. We're putting people, who are really struggling on a day-to-day basis in a very difficult position because they can't go out to work, where when they go out to work, we're not providing them adequate care. So our nurses are going into hospital situations with an apron, for fuck's sake. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
It's okay. You can swear on this. You can swear on
Sorry,
this
I meant to do that under my breath. I do not like to swear on camera.
I'll give my 2 cents on the COVID-19, COVID-9, whatever the fuck it is, the Corona question.
The Rona.
The Corona question. I'll address that, and Julian, with what I think was my most emotional moment this week. Let me. Am I on? Good.
Yeah, you're good.
Picture went funny. Okay. Chris from WikiLeaks, our wonderful editor-in-chief, and a good man. He stayed in touch throughout the years. Julian's my friend, but I know Chris, and he came out and did, I think it's his last press conference. And he said, there was a moment where he was inside the prison with Julian, and he kept trying to circle back the conversation to Julian's conditions and, the COVID and the medical fears and all of that. And Julian kept bringing the conversation back to how Chris was going to go out there and do his job and make WikiLeaks function so that people could get good, solid information on this virus. And he said it. He cracked up a little bit too when he said it, and so Julian's main concern was all of us. Imagine that. We're all out here worried about him, and he's in there worried about whether Chris can get out there and make WikiLeaks function as it should.
That's something they talked about this morning,
be a bringer of truth. So
that's something they talked about this morning. They talked about how if WikiLeaks was operating at its full potential right now, would we have gotten information sooner? And I think the answer to that is obviously yes. I think Charles Glass is the one that brought that up. It's because he was talking about how it's not just about Julian, although that's definitely a cause worth fighting for, but it's also about our access to information and what we're allowed to know. And I can't think of anybody else doing it at the level Julian Assange and WikiLeaks has done and continues to do, even when he's in prison. Like you're talking about, X, he's in prison and he's worried about how to inform us. I mean, he's in a very dangerous situation. He has 2 young children, and he's worried about us. And I think that speaks volumes about what this fight is actually about. And I think a lot of people can sometimes lose, that focus. And I think a lot of people try to put they make it too personal with, you know, just Julian. And I think if we speak to the broader issue too, I think that we got to inform people about what this really, in the big picture, this fight, yes, it's about Julian and he should absolutely be fought for, but there's so much more at stake. And that seems crazy just to say that, but it's true. There's so much more at stake.
Well, the point's been raised, and accurately so, that they're not, it's not that they're going after Julian, they're going after all of us, and they're using Julian to do it. And we've got to be, I mean, we are the first line of defense outside of the courtroom, you know, and it's on us to let everybody else know exactly what's going on and why it's going on. And I think that with the COVID thing, if I had to take a guess, we would be hearing about the massive loss of civil liberties that is taking place internationally over what the response to this.
Spot
We would
on.
be hearing about you know, all of the extraneous laws, at least that are trying to be passed here in the United States. We would definitely be hearing about Peter Thiel and Palantir's contract with the NHS to track and trace and monitor people over there. And I think that we would be hearing about it with a little bit more clarity than, you know, a 42-year-old stoner in California in his freaking log cabin.
They talked about that this morning too, the deal with the NHS to spy on people. It's kind of crazy, everything that they're getting away with. It's scary. And I mean, I know people are scared, and you should definitely stay home, like X was saying, and don't mess with this shit. But at the same time, be mindful of what they're going to take from you, because they're doing it. They're already doing it. They never waste an opportunity to take advantage of a crisis.
It won't take long. Just give the experts a chance to get a handle on this, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying.
Oh, I agree with, no, listen, I agree with you.
Yourself in your house for the next 5 years, you know, a few days, a few weeks. Let's see how this goes. Let's just give these guys a chance. I think that there's been so much talk with the politicians, with the pundits. I'm not a fucking doctor. I don't fucking know. All I know is the doctors and the scientists that I trust are out there saying that this shit's really fucking nasty and we should maybe all take a little vacation. And you know what? I see the pollution charts of the planet, where the whole planet's literally this summer is going to breathe a sigh of fucking relief because we're taking a break. I mean, all the person see those man, clouds are running through Central Park again.
You're breaking up, X.
Can I just say that also, I think there are people...
my phone.
Yeah, go ahead, Deepa.
Sorry. I was just going to say that I think there are a lot of people stuck at home. I think X is right in that it's a great time to take a vacation in some ways, because I think we have quite hectic lives. I think the other thing is not just, there are a lot of people who are struggling with social isolation, who are finding it difficult mental health wise to cope at home and being by themselves. And part of what we're building in this movement is solidarity, and it's really important that just because people are struggling and suffering, I think understanding what's happening with Julian and what's happening with the rest of the world can help them to find purpose in pushing back against some of the things that are affecting the system as a whole, and where we can come together to change the narrative, to change the way we talk about things.
Because you see, everything that we are going through now are the things that Julian has and still continues to go through. For better or worse, the literal lockdown, the house arrest that most countries are placed in right now, the needless spying, the cameras pointed at you at all times from things that you thought were there to originally keep you safe, the intrusion on your location and your private communications with your friends and relatives and loved ones. So there's a lot of ways that the simple things that we're going through right now and feel super uncomfortable with are the same exact things that Julian has dealt with for a decade or longer, but just since he went into the Ecuadorian embassy. So I think that that's a really powerful relation to make there for people.
Well, I just want to. Can I put my fucking microphone up. I just want to say real quick that I lived in my story. My backstory is simple. I lived in activist provided safe houses for 10 fucking years before I got political asylum. I don't want to hear the whining. Really, I don't want to hear the whining. You don't know the shit that I had to endure. Living in fucking basements, living in apple sheds, living in shit in the conditions that you can't even fucking imagine while I ran an empire. That's my story. That's my life. And you know what? I mean, this is paradise. I got all the food I eat. I get my dogs with, what's the thing? I say that we do it. I know. I don't know how long a cat's going to go out. Dog finally should do it. We'll see how long that lasts. Um, and my non-doggies say hello to all their fans out there. Xavier and Alexander are right here at my feet. Just we need to do this for a brief moment at least. We need to let the people who really are fighting this thing actually. We need to get out of the way. The politicians need to get out of the way. The people need to get out of the way. I understand the objections to all the other extra shit they're doing to us. I get that. That's all can be dealt with in time. But right now, we really got to focus on this actual fucking virus, this thing, this bug that could kill millions of us. And we don't need to let that happen. We just don't. If simply taking a little break is all it's going to take, especially for most of the people who can afford to do it. Because you know what? It's not the poor people spreading this. What I see here in Mexico is I see rich tourists coming here into Mexico and fucking bringing that shit from overseas. I don't see Mexicans spreading it amongst Mexicans. So I think that those who can most actually afford it are really the ones who actually do need to isolate, need to lock yourself up for a while, enjoy some online time. As for those who need the social contact, I'm blessed. I don't. I could care less. I got my dogs. You can hear them in the background now. But for those who need it, that's what social media is for, guys. That's what we're here for. That's why there's a chat room on this stream right now. You could be in there right now if you're just lurking and just listening to the stream and all kind of wishing you could talk to some people. Well, you could be this very second. There's a chat attached to this stream, so get in there and meet some people and have some fun. I mean, that's what the internet is for. And as far as I know, the internet is still functioning. So as long as that is still happening, then I always have hope. As long as the internet works, when I get up in the morning, I breathe a sigh of relief. I literally check the internet first thing when I wake up. if the house is still connected, I know there's hope for the day. So we're going to be all right.
So Deepa, what other actions does your group have coming up? What are you guys doing other like kind of online things coming up soon, or like what else can we look forward to from what you've been doing?
I wanted to clarify something. We're not a group. We're just one person, or rather two, Ian Munro and I. We kind of are just two random activists putting up this stuff. And the groups are really the Don't Extradite Assange campaign and the Committee to Defend Julian Assange, who are both the grassroots group and the formal campaign. So it's right now I'm thinking we really need a good event with some lawyers talking about the extradition, and that's the one that's coming up in early May. I have another idea which is a slightly more social event, and that's also planned for early May. I'm waiting to confirm with the groups if they're doing anything, so we don't just have 5 things all at the same time. So that we're having that call next week, and once I'm sorry, I don't have the answers right now, but the one thing that would be really useful is if people know any lawyers, legal professionals, legal academics, if they could get them to add their names to the International Jurist Letter, which is already out, that would be really helpful. And there's some other work going on in relation to mobilizing politicians, and it would be good if we could get some support for that. So you can look forward to 2 events in early May, and I'll share with the people who are on this group and through the various social media channels. If X will share it as well. through his following, then hopefully we will have a big event early May.
And where can everybody follow you at? Like, where can they find?
Sure. My handle is @Deepa_driver. Shall I put it on the
chat?
Twitter
Yeah, that'd be
window? Yeah. And then I think I'm
It's
really,
in
really
the
crap
name
at
of the
technology.
stream.
I think
The name of the stream on all the platforms has your handle in it already. It has you, Missy, and Commander X's.
Oh, okay. Thank
So
you.
people can, if they're watching on Twitter, they can literally just click it and go to your Twitter page, or they can copy and paste it from the YouTube link and go right into yours.
I was chuckling when Steve was saying it on earlier that we're all information activists and we're all, and then X was talking about waking up in the morning and checking if the internet's working. I'm probably at the other end of the spectrum. I can barely get my computer and phone to work. So Twitter is probably my only addiction at the moment. So please follow me on Twitter and I'll share any events that we're doing. And I think it's really nice. Thank you for inviting me.
What a great time to master social media, though. Yeah, man. You laugh. I'm telling you.
You're right. You're right.
Don't waste this time like eating vegetable sandwiches and
That's not fair. I'm trying to finish my PhD.
Become a Twitter giant. Become a Twitter giant. Literally, you could look back on this time and go, yeah, it kind of sucked getting locked up, man. But you know what? That's when I got 10,000 followers on Twitter. Holy shit, and on YouTube. So now's the time, man. Become a star.
I'll try, X. I've got a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, so I'm doing my best.
Twitter account. My dog has a Twitter account. My dog is
Your dog has a Twitter.
It's true. It's true. I follow the dog on Twitter.
That is cool.
Yes,
it's like Embassy Cat and
okay, guys,
X's
you can
dog.
follow him on Twitter. He tweets about stuff mostly from my good friend Glenn Greenwald, who he started a tree down in Brazil. I don't know if he'll let me, but he does a Vigil Hope. If you want to Google it, guys, it's Vigil Hope. And Xander tweets a lot of Twitter of Vigil, but Glenn started a wonderful animal shelter in Rio de Janeiro, where all the employees are homeless. So they take care of dogs and cats. So it's a really wonderful charity. So yeah, follow Xander. The power of social media, man. I mean, now is the best time to get on and master that shit.
One of the things that we're trying to coordinate for Saturdays into the future is doing like a global digital march, where it'll start in New Zealand and Australia on Friday evening and then go all the way until the next day with like the US streams, the UK streams, the German streams, and then even pull in some of the Canadian groups, because Candles for Assange got well over 100 groups around the country in person acting, and it's way easier to get something set up online. So our hope is that Action for Assange will be a small fish in a big pond of online events for Julian and for just raising awareness overall. So that's something that we're working towards here in the future.
Andrew, I'm just going to say goodbye because I've got to break up a fight between my kids. But it's been really great to hear you guys, and I'll try and join in a little later if you're still going. But thank you very much for having me.
All right, and please come back, Deepa. We'd love to have you back.
The audience loved you, by the way.
Thank you. That's really kind. Thanks. Bye, X. Bye, everybody.
X, you're muted.
And I'm right there. I'm right there with Deepa. Like I'm not tech smart.
This microphone sucks, dude.
I'm not tech savvy. That's why we have Sleepy Josh. But I can.
Crappy microphone. Man.
Yeah, I need a new mic. Actually, I need software to run the killer mic.
I can afford one. I just can't find one. It's not about affordability. in Mexico, a lot of shit is not available like it is in America. It's not like I can't just go down to the Walmart, guys. There is no fucking Walmart. I
Sounds
live
glorious.
in a universe where Walmart does not exist.
Right. Not in the little town in the little mountain town in California that I live in, the entire county doesn't have a Walmart. You literally have to go a county over into Santa Clara where Silicon Valley is before you get I guess we got a Best Buy and a Home Depot, but that's about it for big box stores, and I still got to drive a half an hour to get to it. We're pretty fortunate. We've got mostly locally owned and operated businesses in the town. And I just, especially now when we're all on lockdown, but we still have the ability to go to essential businesses. It makes me feel a little bit better knowing that the essential business I'm supporting isn't owned by, a faceless, soulless corporation. It's owned by like Jenna or, Dave. And that works out a little bit better in my mind.
Yeah, well, Dave, the headset, Rodriguez, the headset vendor down in like Centro, did not have anything more than this. So that was my. I did support the local economy. That's my fucking tech problem.
So we had a question in the chat earlier, and I think it might be fun to go around and have everybody answer, and we can start with Misty on it. Could you share or articulate your philosophical perspective, which coincides with Julian's motivation, or with Julian Assange's motivating your efforts to achieve his freedom?
Okay, so probably just truth. Like, I'm somebody who enjoys the truth, and I've learned that that's not always the case for other people. I often get told I'm too honest. I've had to kind of learn as I got older that some people don't always want to hear the truth. But I'm somebody who likes the truth. I don't care how bad it sucks. I don't care how awful it is. I want to know. And I think that that's very much, that's been kind of the mission of WikiLeaks, is just truth. Like, straight up, this is what's going on. They don't, write opinion pieces. They show you documentation. And so that's probably what I would say most aligns with kind of the mission statement of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. Is I want to know the truth. If my government's committing war crimes in my name, I want to know about that. And I think everybody should. I mean, I want to live in a world where exposing war crimes is celebrated and, not penalized and punished and tortured and terrorized. Like, that should be, something we all want to live with,
What about you, Commander X?
My stupid microphone here. I think that my philosophical rail that most parallels Julian's is more of a cyberpunk sort of viewpoint, wherein I believe that civilization by consensus, which means all of you actually voted for something that you maybe don't understand you voted for, but nevertheless you did it with full consciousness. You voted to become part of a fully digitized universe. Your entire world now, from your automobile to your refrigerator, is digitized. And in doing that, you created a situation whereby information, just information in and of itself, can have the power of God. It can literally change history in its tracks. It can save lives. It can stop kinetic armies in their tracks with ones and zeros. And so the cypherpunk viewpoint is, first of all, to wrap my mind around that and go, holy fucking shit, you mean to tell me that I can literally reprogram my universe if I can just simply control the flow of information, if I can just from the use of information. And so the cypherpunk viewpoint is, first of all, a big giant wow to that. Because how cool would it be to change the world without bombs and bullets? How cool would it be if you actually could control the world with information? How cool would that be? And so it begins from there. And what Julian created, what I created, what all of us sort of co-created in our different fronts was a giant movement of information activism, a giant movement that says, hey, let's take that acorn, that kernel of a wow, and see what we can do with it. Like a battery, can we plug it into this? Can we plug it into that? Can we make this ocean happen? Can we enhance this movement? And that then evolved into the front of information activism. But in the end, the cohesive idea of information activism comes from those early the cyberpunk science fiction. Read it, guys. You'll be so fucking blown away as you read. You'll keep flipping back to the title cover going, this was copyrighted in 1973. Are you fucking kidding me? And they're talking about the internet and encryption wars between the government and people using encryption and shit across this giant network. Are you kidding me? You know, how did these guys figure that shit out? How did they know? And so that's just another facet of that wow of the whole cyberpunk sort of ideal. I mean, you can say about the history of it. It begins in 18. Yeah, we're not talk about that, but that's where I think myself personally and Julian share is that we come from that sort of deep-seated, sort of almost you have to it's a soft slap religious belief, really. It's really a leap of faith. So we have placed ourselves in a universe where pure can anything, everything that really has unlimited power, and from there you do it. So I guess that pretty much sums it up. To answer that question, I don't know if I missed any questions.
What about you, Steve?
So I'm gonna go back to my favorite Julian Assange quote, which are two things that I find enjoyable. I enjoy helping those who are vulnerable, and I enjoy crushing bastards. I'm a serial volunteer. I'm a habitual volunteer. My entire life I've been helping out with one thing or another. Again, the first time I had my head split open by a cop, it was in Seattle in 1999 at the WTO protest. And I keep doing that because I feel a very strong connection, or I guess I feel a very strong obligation to help people that are more vulnerable than me. And I've been homeless, I've been locked up, in the financial crash that happened in 07 and 08, it rolled over and stuck around in California, and we were homeless for about 5 months trying to find a place with 2 kids. So we were, sleeping in state parks and on couches and floors and anywhere we could. And so when I see somebody else in a similar situation, I want to help because I've lived through it. Like, chances, if you've had a fucked up experience in your life, chances are I can match or beat it. So and that's not anything that I'm happy about. It's just the way that shit rolled down. But that also means you've got my empathy, and I'm going to have your back. And I also enjoy crushing bastards. I do. I got fired from the nation and blacklisted and removed from fucking the entirety of the interwebs because I went out and tried to crush a bastard. And that particular bastard was Barack Obama. In the summer of 2008, I wrote an article for The Nation called Barack Obama, Reagan with a Tan. It got fucking immediately scrubbed. Chris Hayes was the politics editor at The Nation at the time. He fired me. And I spent about did a while in the cyber wilderness because all of my work had disappeared. So yeah, I enjoy crushing bastards, and any opportunity I get to do that, I am damn well gonna take. Just as I will, jump at the opportunity to help someone who's vulnerable.
And what about you, Andrew?
Yeah.
I guess for me, it comes down to the fact that, like, I believe that if people actually know what's happening, they'll want to make the right decision. Because, like, I think there's a very small group of evil people doing really bad things.
You don't know how many arguments I've had with Julian. You sound just like him. You sound just like Julian.
I can't hear you.
He's just like he's very hopeful about humanity, very positive about humanity. It's funny. It's one of the things me and Julian have fun seeing because I'm very much a pessimist. I don't know that humanity will do the right thing. I just hope humanity.
Mexico, bad.
Yeah,
you're
he's a big believer. He's a big believer in humanity.
Yeah, and that's my biggest.
Yeah, I got it. I know.
Is that I think if enough.
You sound
people,
like him. You do. You sound like Julian.
Well, thank you. But I think if enough people actually get what's going on in the world, that we collectively could make the conscious decisions of, hey, let's not have our manufacturing in the US build bombs. Let's have our manufacturing in the US build something that the people in the US consent to being built. Because I have like friends in big industries that build the parts for oil rigs and things like that, that they don't really care because they don't really know what happens to be able to have us able as a nation to export that oil and exploit those resources. So I think it comes down to just getting the right piece of information to the right person to be able to change the world one mind at a time. And like right now, actually, like with the power of information.
Sorry that my microphone failed, but you still sound like Julian. Julian would agree with you. I mean, you be sitting on Julian, you tap your girls while I just shake my head. Yeah, that's the way that and so I think if it's a contest about who has the closest mind, that would be it. That would be. I can almost hear Julian talking right now. I wish I had that kind of faith in humanity. I only know it's the right thing to do. I can only do what I know in my heart to be right, and so that's why I side with you on it. Obviously, I'm with you. Obviously, I hope you're right. I'd love to sit here and wish you're right. I just don't know. I'm not convinced. I'm not. Not 100% yet. We'll see how humanity behaves, but I think that we're on the right track with things like WikiLeaks. The things I'd like to point out is that Julian has also educated the world to the power of this tool. It's unlikely that there will ever disappear from this earth something like WikiLeaks. There will always be something like WikiLeaks around because and what very WikiLeaks viral thing can never be from minds of society. In and of itself. I just want to point out too that I think it's very powerful and poignant that we are in a historical moment where we are necessitated. It is absolutely necessary that the internet itself rise up now and save Julian and WikiLeaks because they are both of them creatures of the internet, creatures of this overweening global network thing that has created this power, this moment where information has this power. So I just think it's interesting. I think it's neat that it's the internet itself now that is left because there is nothing left. The banners are in tatters, guys, in the gutter, man. So now it's the internet that will rise up and literally save Julian Assange. And I just think that will go down too. That too will be written about in the history books. That powerful moment. We will once again prove the very premise of information activism, the very philosophical underpinnings of this entire movement. We will be once again in the last decade or so will be proved in a very big, obvious way that it was the internet that came to save the day. So I think it's just a great chance. It's a great moment to be. This is a great thing to be involved in. It always was. and it doesn't matter how we do it. We just get it done. And there's so many wonderful twists to the way history has written this. That's a great way to do this. It's a great time.
It really is,
Humanity
man.
needs some hope. Humanity needs hope. So
the last time you were here, X, you were talking about, fuck it, sell everything you have and go occupy an embassy. Sell get on a bus, get on a plane, go to DC, go to the closest embassy, and now we're forced to be more creative. We're forced to think about it differently, and our movement is going to live or die based on our ability to improvise and to adapt to what we're doing. And I really do believe that with all of the events that are going on pretty much every weekend now, with incredibly high profile people, and the information that's being put out is solid, accurate, incredibly well presented information, that we have a unique opportunity, especially since we're all at home, to reclaim a ton of our agency back. And that's going to happen through general strikes and rent strikes and debt strikes. But I also
ending the lockdown protests. I think that's a big part too, because that's the First Amendment is three portions. There's religious right, there's freedom of information and press, and then there's freedom of association. And they're trying to take all three of those, not just one and then another and another. And I'm not saying that we should all pile into the streets, but because that's obviously not the best decision to make right now. But I think it's important that we recognize that losing the battle for Julian's freedom and to end that court trial is as bad as it is losing freedom of association to a highly tyrannical government because of a pandemic that may or may not have been planned by the global elite.
We won't lose, guys. We won't lose. Just keep up the good work and keep up the good faith. Get ready to drink a lot of coffee. You've got a deadline and it's coming up. This isn't going to last forever, guys. We're going to win this in a month. We're going to win this in a month, right? We got a few weeks, so let's just. I don't see anything negative in this is the work, guys. This is what it takes. Sometimes in revolution, we have to backtrack and we have to pick up our own from the battlefield.
Hi everyone, I'm Stella.
It's just us going back for our own. They do the same. Our enemy does the same. Semper Fi and all that fucking bullshit, right? So we're just, this is what is kid time is what I say. Like important more than ever is to be to use time to polish your act, use time to be as creative and as fun and interesting as you can, because now you're in a contest with thousands of other independent media providers who are, like I said, doing everything from streaming games to streaming the political stuff. So be the show in town. Be the show in town, man. And then on these streams, because they're so multifaceted now with the chat room and all the ability to send and everything, you orb around that all the other online activities, such as the petition and email campaigns and all that other stuff that you can then order around. And I think that gets this done. We don't have a lot of time. We can argue the COVID civil liberties issues when we free Julian. But right now, the clock is tick-tocking on that first and foremost, and it is what it is. There's no sense in talking or complaining about it. The silly fucking protesters want to go out and get COVID can go do that. I'm staying home and going to say, I'm a journalist. I've been talking nonstop. My voice is hoarse. I'm a journalist. I'm doing my part. So, just let's keep fighting the good fight. And we make a lot of friendships. Think of the lifelong friendships you're making while you're doing a movement like this. It's incredible. You will meet people and work with people that you will know the rest of your life. This is what a movement like this is about. So embrace that, embrace the moment for what it is. And I said it's a historic chance for the internet to actually prove it can come to the rescue once again.
So I'm gonna hop over and show a video real quick because we probably got about 15 minutes or so before we have to wrap up, because we're gonna start streaming the French online protest after this. But I wanted to get everybody's opinion, so let me pull it up here because I'm pretty sure that my screen share should be okay. This is a video of Stella Morris. She's on Twitter now, at Stella Morris 1. I put it in the chat a little bit earlier.
Hi everyone, I'm Stella Morris. I am Julian Assange's fiancée and the mother of his children, Max and Gabriel. I would like to thank everyone for everything that you're doing for Julian. As long as he's in prison, we need to do everything we can to get him out, to get him free, and to stop this prosecution. Thank you for writing to your politicians. Thank you for informing everyone who has a voice, who has influence, of the facts, of what's at stake, of the fact that his life is in jeopardy and our democratic values are also at stake. Please keep it up. We will keep it up. It gives us enormous hope that you're paying attention, and we will win this. Thank you.
Hell yeah.
She's awesome.
Well, I just want to compliment Julian Assange on his fucking OPSEC, man. I mean, I'm one of his best friends, and I talked to him constantly while he was in that embassy, and I didn't fucking have a clue. And you know what? It appears the CIA wasn't even absolutely sure. So fuck them, man. That's amazing shit to be able to get away with that. To get away with that under that kind of surveillance. Julian, man, twinkle fingers, bro. Twinkle fingers, man. That's fucking thumbs up on the OPSEC.
How disgusting, depraved, and desperate is it to find out that the CIA was trying to steal a diaper so that they could go test it? I mean,
what fucking great OPSEC. I mean, seriously, that's just astounding. That was all I could think about and laugh at was, my God, he pulled the wool over everybody's eyes. Even fucking spooks weren't there, man. How does that happen?
Well, isn't there another interview with her where she talks about how that's when she kind of realized, that's when she really realized how crazy these people are and how far they will go. She's like, they're trying to steal my child's DNA. Like, that's insane. And the fact that I don't think a lot of people realize what Julian goes through.
Twinkle fingers again, man. It's a thumbs up moment. I mean, it doesn't change anything. Julian's got children in Australia too. I know a lot of people don't like to point that out, but he's also got kids in Australia as well. There are people also back home in Australia. His mother, especially who I'm dear friends with from years back, Christina, shout out if she's listening to you. I love you still, sweetie. It is what it is. It just, obviously it adds to the humanitarian thing. I mean, it makes it even that much more urgent. I think it makes it much more human that you can see that he had to, in secret, in incredible secrecy, had to create a normalcy and a lifestyle that is just, it's just unimaginable. It's just almost unthinkable. And so I welcome her voice. I welcome her gratitude. I think now the time is to get her a guest on here. Has somebody reached out to her? You don't know that she'll say no. Try, ask her to come on, man. See if she'll come on one of these. What, you'll get 10,000 viewers. So that's what it's about, man. Scrap for that. See if you can get that to happen, man. Maybe reach out to Christine if anybody's still got a connection, or see if she can arrange it. I don't know, but that would be great, to have her on. I think she obviously has something very powerful to say about all this. It's very personal. So, wow, what more can you say? I mean, wow. It's just been a wild week. I mean, it's been that kind of a week, really, all the way around. For me, anyway, it's been a very daunting week. But.
Yeah, no, I agree. And X, I have to get you on my other show, Slow News Day, here soon. We're gonna have to figure that out. I know that my audience would benefit from an hour or so chat with you. So we're gonna have to set that up. But I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap up for now because
I'm gonna go. Battery's dead.
All right. We'll let people know where they can find you real quick before you hop off.
www.direct.info. And thank you. I'll come back, guys.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, X.
Just get up with me. Yep. Bye.
Cool. So, Misty, where can people find you? Do you have any final thoughts? We got a couple minutes.
No, I don't really think I have any final thoughts other than, I mean, Stella's braver than the troops, man. Joining Twitter as Julian Assange's partner has got to be kind of daunting. And so I think if everybody can just follow her, offer her support, defend her online if she gets troll action, we got to stick with her and make sure that she feels supported for sure. I can't imagine what that's like, having 2 kids, and I can't imagine being under, I think there's another interview with her where she talks about it being like, it's like a war zone. They're under constant attack. So yeah, just if you can, follow her on Twitter and, lend her your support. Other than that, I'm on Twitter at Sarcasm Stardust. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming. You can find me on Twitter at Andrew Zigmund. That's Zigmund. You can find all of this on Twitter at action_4 Assange. I'd like to give a special thank you to the DEA campaign for letting us stream their digital march this morning. And also a big thank you to the Unity for J team for allowing us to simulcast onto their platform. We've been trying to work with a lot of different content creators to get simulcast set up, and them and Jason Burmis are the first 2 that have really stepped up to help us out with that. And so I look forward to seeing if we can't get a couple other large or small creators to host a vigil every once in a while.
If you're just seeing me for the first time, my name's Steve Poikinen. I host a show called Slow News Day. You can find it on YouTube by typing Slow News Day Podcast into the search bar. I will be interviewing Eric Jackman tomorrow. The following Sunday, I do Big Ass Sunday shows. I actually call it the Big Ass Sunday Show. The following Sunday, I'll have Adam Kokesh. Cinco de Mayo, I will be sitting down with the Mad Pirate King, John McAfee. And there will be tons of content going out in between those days. I just got onto Rockfin. I plan on doing my first Rockfin stream today with the mighty Sam Tripoli. So that's going to be absolutely insane. Huge thanks to Deepa Driver and to Commander X for being on the stream today. They're incredible and definitely would like to have them back on. Thank you, Misty and Andrew, Sleepy Josh on the 1s and 2s. And you guys who are watching, thank you very much. You make it, you do, and we love you. We will be back Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific with Ray McGovern and Elizabeth Voss. So that will be tremendous. And until then, guys, good luck to us all.
Do you want to mention the French stream real quick?
Are we still on? No,
Yeah,
it's all right.